To understand the story of Tesla is to understand the anatomy of a gamble. So large, it bordered on madness. It begins not with a sleek sedan or a revolutionary battery, but with a fundamental question that most had already answered with a resounding no. Why had the electric car died? For decades, the giants of Detroit and the titans of the global automotive industry had convinced the world that electric vehicles were nothing more than glorified golf carts, slow, ugly, and destined for the scrap heap of history. But in the early 2000s, a group of engineers in Silicon Valley saw a crack in that narrative, and a young entrepreneur with a fortune from PayPal and a mind fixed on the stars decided to drive a wedge through it. This is the story of how a vision for a sustainable future was forged in the fires of near bankruptcy, engineering hell, and an unyielding will to prove the world wrong. Welcome back to the Null Theory channel. If you enjoy deep, meaningful stories, please take a moment to like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel to support us. The story of Tesla is often simplified into a tale of a single man's genius. But the reality is far more complex, human, and fraught with the kind of tension that breaks most people. It began in 2003 with Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, two engineers who shared a quiet but radical frustration. They watched as the world obsessed over gas-guzzling SUVs, while the technology for a cleaner future sat gathering dust. They didn't just want to build a green car. They wanted to build a car that was objectively better than anything powered by gasoline. They named their company after Nikola Tesla, the tragic genius of electricity, whose own life was a series of brilliant breakthroughs, followed by heartbreaking obscurity. In those early days, the company was a skeletal operation, tucked away in a nondescript office in San Carlos, California. It smelled of solder, ozone, and the quiet, desperate optimism of a startup trying to defy the laws of the market. While Eberhard and Tarpenning had the engineering spark, they lacked the massive, almost incomprehensible capital required to fight an industry that had been entrenched for over a century. Enter Elon Musk. To understand Musk in 2004, you have to look past the current headlines and see a man who had just walked away from the sale of PayPal with $180 and a profound sense of restlessness. He wasn't a man interested in a quiet retirement or a safe portfolio. He was a man shaped by a childhood in South Africa, where he sought refuge in science fiction and the belief that humanity's survival depended on becoming a multiplanetary, multi-energy species. He didn't just want to invest. He wanted to lead the revolution. He led the series of funding round with $6.50 million, becoming the chairman of the board, and set in motion a decade of disruption that would change the world's energy landscape forever. In those early years, the atmosphere at Tesla was one of idealistic chaos. They were building the Roadster, a high-performance sports car based on the chassis of a Lotus Elise. The logic was simple but brilliant. Start at the top of the market where people are willing to pay a premium for performance, and then use that money to fund cheaper models. It was Musk's secret master plan, written in 2006. But the transition from a concept to a production vehicle is a journey through a valley of shadow. The Roadster was plagued by delays that felt like personal failures to the team. Every time they thought they had it right, the transmission would fail, unable to handle the immense instantaneous torque of the electric motor. It would literally shred itself to pieces. Costs spiraled out of control, ballooning from an estimated $70,000 to over $100,000 per car. By 2007, the company was burning through cash at an unsustainable rate, and internal tensions reached a breaking point. Musk took over as CEO, realizing that if he didn't steer the ship personally, it was going to sink before it ever left the harbor. Then came 2008, the year that almost ended it all. To tell this part of the story, you have to imagine the weight of the world pressing down on a single individual. The global financial crisis was tearing through the economy like a wildfire. Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the automotive giants of Detroit, General Motors and Chrysler, were on their knees begging for government bail. For a tiny, unproven electric car startup, the situation was catastrophic. Tesla was weeks, then days, away from running out of money. Musk was also pouring his personal fortune into SpaceX, which had just suffered 3 consecutive launch failures. He was a man standing on two sinking ships, holding only enough life vests for one. The psychological toll was immense. Those close to him described him as looking like a man who was physically decaying from the stress. He was facing the very real possibility that everything he had worked for, his money, his reputation, and his vision for the future, would vanish in a puff of smoke. This is the moment where the legend of Musk was truly forged. He chose to go all in. He gathered every cent he had left, roughly 40 million, and bet it on Tesla, convincing other investors to match him in a funding round that closed on Christmas Eve 28. If that deal had been delayed by even a few hours, Tesla would have been nothing more than a footnote in business history. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated risk. Survival, however, was only the first step. To become a real car company, Tesla needed to move beyond the niche roadster and build a car that could compete with the BMWs and Mercedes of the world. That car was the Model S. This wasn't just a car with an electric motor swapped in. It was a computer on wheels designed from the ground up to redefine luxury. It featured a massive touchscreen that controlled everything, over-the-air software updates that could improve the car while you slept, and a low center of gravity that made it safer and faster than its rivals. When the Model S won Motor Trend Car of the Year in 2013 by a unanimous vote, the first time in history for a non-combustion engine, the industry finally stopped laughing. But the greatest challenge, the one that would nearly kill the company again, was still to come. Musk's ultimate goal was the Model 3, the mass-market car that would bring electric mobility to the millions. This period, from 2017 to 2019, is what Musk famously called production hell. It is one thing to hand-build a few thousand luxury sedans in a controlled environment. It is entirely another to mass-produce hundreds of thousands of cars with surgical precision. Tesla tried to automate too much too fast, building an alien dreadnought factory in Fremont that ended up being a nightmare of malfunctioning robots and bottlenecked assembly lines. The vision was a factory so fast that the air resistance of the robots was the only limiting factor. The reality was a graveyard of broken machinery and missed targets. During this time, the world watched with bated breath, and for many, with a sense of predatory glee. Short sellers, investors betting on the company's failure, bet billions that Tesla would finally collapse. The media coverage was relentless, painting Musk as a charlatan and Tesla as a house of cards. Musk responded by moving into the factory. He was sleeping on the factory floor, curled up in a sleeping bag under a desk or on a cold concrete floor, personally inspecting cars and troubleshooting lines at 3:00 a.m. He looked haggard, his tweets became increasingly erratic, and the pressure seemed ready to crush him. He was a man obsessed, driven by a fear that if this car failed, the entire transition to sustainable energy would be set back by decades. The Fremont factory during production hell was a scene of industrial desperation. Sparks flew from welding robots that weren't synchronized. Engineers worked 100-hour weeks, their faces etched with the kind of exhaustion that goes beyond physical tiredness. Yet, through sheer force of will and the tireless dedication of his team, the production lines began to move. They did things that real car companies would find insane. They built a massive tent in the parking lot to house an extra assembly line when they realized they didn't have enough space. They simplified the robots and brought back human workers for tasks that required the dexterity machines couldn't yet mimic. Slowly, the numbers climbed, from hundreds a week to thousands. The Model 3 became a global phenomenon, proving that the world didn't just want electric cars. They craved them. Today, Tesla is the most valuable automaker in the world, often worth more than all its major competitors combined. But its legacy isn't just in its stock price, its gigafactories, or the number of superchargers on the highway. Its legacy is the fundamental shift in the global consciousness. Every major car company in the world, from Volkswagen to Ford, is now pivoting to electric. They are doing so not necessarily because they want to, but because they have to. They are doing so because Tesla proved it was possible. They proved that an electric car could be sexy, fast, and smarter than its predecessors. They forced the giants of the 20th century to adapt or die. When we look back at how Elon Musk built Tesla, we shouldn't just see the technical innovations or the vertical integration. We should see the story of a man who refused to accept the constraints of the way things have always been done. It is a story about the cost of ambition. It shows us that progress is not a smooth upward curve. It is a series of near-death experiences, sleepless nights, and the courage to double down when everyone else is telling you to fold. Tesla represents a bridge between the era of fossil fuels and a future powered by the sun. It is a testament to the fact that major societal shifts require more than just good ideas. They require a level of perseverance that borders on the irrational. As we walk through the halls of history, we see that Tesla was built on a foundation of no buoy. No, it won't work. No, the batteries are too heavy. No, the infrastructure isn't there. No, you can't build a car company from scratch. Every one of those no's was a brick that Musk and his team used to build a yes. It reminds us that while the path to the future is paved with uncertainty, it is driven by those who are brave enough to imagine a world that doesn't yet exist and stubborn enough to make it real. In the end, Tesla is more than a car company. It is a testament to the power of a mission. Whether you admire Musk or critique his methods, one cannot deny the impact of the house he built. He didn't just build a car, he built a movement. He showed us that the silence of an electric motor isn't just a lack of noise. It is the sound of a new world beginning. It is the sound of an industry waking up from a century-long slumber. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of a revolution. As we look toward the horizon, remember that the greatest changes often start with a single impossible idea and the person crazy enough to believe in it.